The Dome, Stephen Thompson from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette joins us now on his way up here to Syracuse. How's the drive going, Stephen?
It's just lovely. Enjoyed a little sheep's lunch and driving through the fall foliage. It's been great so far.
Excellent. Love to hear it. It is a nice day to go for a ride, and especially in the Northeast, leaves starting to change. There's that hint of football in the air, right? That little chill in the air. We got to start with the quarterback position with this team. Why did Pat Narduzzi make the change, right? I mean, the team was 2-2 at the time. Take us through why the change was made to the freshman, and obviously he's been fantastic since he's taken over.
Right. So I believe the decision to go from Eli Holstein, who this team invested a lot in during the offseason, not just in kind of a supporting cast, but I believe kind of some direct financial support. And it reflected, I think, a sense of urgency in the situation. Like, they're 2-2, but those two losses were to teams that they really should have beaten, and they blew 3 double-digit leads in those games. So Holstein wasn't necessarily playing poorly, but you watch those games, and there were clearly a lot of layups that he missed. For a guy that Pitt expected to take a step forward this season, he just really wasn't quite meeting expectations. And so I think all things being equal, they decided to go with the freshman, someone that they could develop, but also someone that they saw a lot of talent in. And so you've really seen some residual effects from how Mason Heinstchel has been playing. The Pitt offense is kind of hunting the deep passes a little bit less. I know Heinstchel got into some trouble there against Florida State through 2 interceptions, and it was kind of along those lines, like looking to make big plays when they weren't really there. Those were things that got Holstein in trouble as well. But this offense is a lot more efficient down to down, I would say, not as dependent upon the big play. And that's really helped out the defense a ton, too. With Holstein under center, or I guess in shotgun, they weren't really staying on the field for a very long time. Possession was really skewed super heavily in favor of Pitt's opponents. They just weren't staying on the field. They weren't converting in the red zone, scoring touchdowns when they were in that range. And it's been kind of a complete 180 now. So this offense that had prided itself so much on scoring quickly, gaining yards in chunks, and moving with tempo, is now a little bit more methodical. They stayed on the field a lot longer. Their drives are a lot longer. They're still throwing the ball a ton, but the ability to stay on the field for longer, convert on third down, things of that nature, has helped out the defense a ton too. It's a good unit, but it's one that's had a bunch of injuries. So, the quarterback change was a pretty dramatic one, and Pat Narduzzi called it a gamble himself, but it's worked out for them so far. Mason Heinstchel's passed his first couple of tests with flying colors.
Well, you bring up time of possession, Stephen, and I think they were dead last in the country before the quarterback change in time of possession. That certainly, like you're saying, has been a stylistic change to the offense. Seems like a lot of underneath passes and not as much deep shots like you're talking about. What else, when you look at Mason Heinstchel and you evaluate what his strengths and weaknesses are, what else is different in Heinstchel being the quarterback versus what they had in Eli Holstein?
Was a really good runner, and I think this year he had been kind of empowered to really take off whenever he saw a lane. And I don't think that's the most efficient, way for this team to operate. The difference is Heinstchel is that he's pretty athletic, like he can move, and he certainly showed against Florida State that he can run. But the thing is, he keeps his eyes downfield really well when he's scrambling, when he's getting out of the pocket and being a little bit creative. So he's able to find guys downfield when the play breaks down or he's running off schedule, which is something that Holstein I don't think was able to do super well, or at least he was more focused on kind of getting upfield and getting what yards he could out of plays like that, out of off schedule plays like that. So I think another thing you notice about Heinstchel is kind of a little mature. He's pretty mature for his age. He's only 18 years old. Everyone raves about kind of his moxie, his leadership skills, his ability to kind of bounce back from mistakes, which he certainly had against Florida State. It was interesting kind of getting to know his background a little bit. So he, came from a real small high school in Western Ohio, just outside of Toledo. And, it was a high school program that Clay High School that didn't have a ton of success prior to Heinstchel showing up and taking over the starting quarterback job. But his senior year, he leads them to a division title and the first one in 40 years. So he, has a little bit of moxie and ability to elevate teammates like that. Pitt really saw that from the beginning. It was one of the big reasons they recruited him, and it's really kind of shown through his first couple starts this year.
Now, obviously, he's a big reason for their success the last couple of weeks. Not the only reason, though. And you look at a guy like Des Reed, who came back from injury, missed about a month, was back last week against Florida State and was awesome in his return. Had 45 yards on the ground, but did a lot of his damage receiving. 155 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. How important is this guy to their offense? And we saw that he popped up on the injury report again. Is there anything to read into that, or should he be good to go tomorrow night?
Well, I'm expecting him to be good to go tomorrow night. I think it's just kind of the natural state of Desmond Reed that he's going to be questionable going into every week, just given the volume of touches, given his size. I mean, he's a tough dude, but, I don't know if you believe that there were some NFL measurements apparently that came out, before the season began that he was about 5'5". I think he's taller than that, but either way, he's really only about 5'8" at the most. So he's a smaller dude, and when you have that volume of touches, he's just always going to kind of be banged up to a certain extent. I still expect that he plays, but he's massive for this team. He's just the easiest way for them to create offense. Like you said, those short passes that he was able to take for 7, 8, 9, 10 yards were really huge. I think about their first drive against Florida State. They're facing a 3rd and 13, kind of around midfield, and he takes a pass 12 yards and sets them up for an easy 4th and 1 that they convert. It's just that kind of thing. Like, he's liable to take a screen pass or a short pass over the middle, 35 yards at any given moment. And so in the absence of a really consistent running game, which Pitt hasn't really been able to get going this year, his ability to be just an easy kind of dump-off option for Heinstchel, whoever's playing quarterback, is absolutely massive. He's their best player on offense, kind of full stop. So having him back, it was a night and day difference.
Yeah, he came from Western Carolina. So did Fran Brown, by the way. And then so did the offensive coordinator, Cade Bell. Second year now with Cade Bell running the offense. How does the fan base feel about him? Because it's kind of weird from a Syracuse perspective. I know Pittsburgh beat up on Syracuse last year, but we really didn't see the offense a ton or get a great grasp of what style of offense Cade Bell runs. So how would you describe it, and what's been the reaction to his first year and a half as the OC?
Well, it kind of varies game to game, which I think is just kind of the nature of football.
Right.
After those West Virginia and Louisville losses, not a ton of people were happy with him. My impression of this Pitt offense through a year and a half is that there are always receivers open. You can maybe have a few gripes with some specific play calls at certain times. And I think because of the way Holstein's tenure here has gone, people kind of question his ability to develop quarterbacks to a certain extent. But we'll see with Heinstchel. I think for the most part, the scheme works. The plays are there to be made, which is why they made a switch at quarterback. There are plays being made that weren't being made. I think also appreciate his ability to adapt a little bit. He arrived at Pitt, and the big story was, oh man, Pitt's going to be moving fast. They're going to, run some creative stuff that creates big plays, and they're going to be able to score in less than 2 minutes every time. And you look at this offense now, and that really hasn't been the case. Like I said, the time of possession thing has been huge, and it's really helped the defense as well. It's made them complementary, but his ability to adapt and adjust to what the team needs, I think, has been impressive in my book. And we'll see how this Heinstchel is really the first guy that he recruited straight out of high school and will get to develop at the Power 5 level. So we'll see how that goes. But I think as far as the scheme goes, he really makes the most of what he has. As long as he's able to get the quarterback up to speed and they're able to kind of be a point guard and distribute the ball efficiently, this offense really will hum, and this offense can work.
On the other side of the ball, Steven, it looks like, Tim and I were talking about how this might not be a great matchup for Syracuse. They've got Ricky Collins in, who's struggled to throw the ball. Pitt does a really nice job stopping the run. How would you kind of assess the overall defense of the Panthers this year, and do you think that's the plan going into tomorrow, stop the run and make Ricky Collins try to beat you through the air?
That's really been the plan for Pat Narduzzi defenses going back, I think, to his Michigan State days, right? Like, it's just kind of their identity is they're going to sell out against the run, and everything else is predicated on that. So it's secondary has been leaky at times. They've given up a bunch of big pass plays this season, but I really think that front seven is darn near elite. A little bit banged up. They're going to have some guys out at defensive end, but they found some capable replacements. The interior of the defensive line is really outstanding and really deep, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think they're going to try to create some havoc in the backfield, force Ricky Carlos to beat them, and that's just kind of what Pitt does. So he's going to have to be able to get the ball out quick and live under pressure, because I'm really not sure that the running game is going to have much of a hope. I don't know that Pitt should or will be very afraid of Collins beating them deep. I think they'll live with their corners and their DBs out on islands for pretty much all night.
Yeah, it seems like that's their identity normally. You talked about Desmond Reed, and he's been banged up and is listed as questionable. Any injuries that you're following closely? You're going to be keeping an eye on anyone warming up that Syracuse fans should know about from a Pittsburgh standpoint?
The one that I would really pay attention to is Cruz Brookins, the safety. Talked about that secondary being leaky at times. And Brookins, first year as a full-time starter, and he's taken a big step forward, in my opinion, just in terms of being better, like down to down. He was known for making some big plays on third downs when they went to like a nickel defense last year, but he's been a lot more consistent this year. Well, he's proven that he can be consistent down to down as a full-time starter this year. He's, I think, also questionable on that first availability report. Not sure if he's going to play. I think he was close last week, listed as a game-time decision ahead of the Florida State game. Didn't end up playing, but he's a really big part of that secondary. The only other one I can think of is Jeff Kersey, the left tackle, also questionable, but his backup, Kendall Stanley, did a great job filling in for him last week, so that one I'm a little less worried about.
Stephen, we got about a minute or so left. Kind of a two-part question here. Just curious to get your thoughts about Syracuse. And secondly, how do you see this game playing itself out tomorrow night?
Well, I was really impressed with how Syracuse got the Fran Brown era off to the start they got off to last year. I think a much better team than the one we saw play Pitt, but obviously taking a step back last year. It seems like, from a 30,000-foot view, they're replacing a lot, but have some young talent. So, I think encouraging stuff, but I am not sure that this is the spot for them to pull out a big win. I think Pitt probably does take care of business and covers that 10.5-point spread. I don't think they're going to put up a ton of points, but I really think that defense is going to tie Syracuse down. So maybe a 34 or 35-10 game would probably be my prediction. I'm not sure this one is close.
All right. Yeah. Stephen, we do appreciate the time, and enjoy the rest of your ride there, and we'll see you inside the Dome tomorrow night.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, Stephen Thompson joining us from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette here on the show. We'll hit a timeout here, and we'll check in on the market. We'll wrap up hour number one next.